Inshallah, we are still in Kitab al-Janazat, the funeral. The hadith number 86. عن عطية. عطية is Sahabiya. She is a companion of Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam. Her name is Nasiba bintu Ka'b, or it's been said Nasiba bintu al-Harith. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what exactly her name, but she's well known by the name, by the laqab Atiyah. Atiyah, we talked about her the hadith last week. She used to do a lot of ghusl. She used to wash the dead in the days of Rasulullah, and she was special at it. She used to know all the details about it, and she narrated this hadith. She says, "Nuhina an ittiba' al-janaiz wa lam yu'zam alayna." We were told not to follow the funerals. Who? Women. Not to follow the funerals. وَلَمْ يُعْزَمْ عَلَيْنَا. We were not, that order of not following the janazah was not strictly enforced, in a nutshell. In a nutshell, was not strictly enforced, So, in other words, in the days of Rasulullah when a woman used to follow janazah, she was told, Rasulullah said, do not follow it. But if they do follow it, they don't stop and say, no, go back, that's forbidden, that's haram, that is, And this is where the ulama have differed on the issue of a woman following the janazah, following the funeral. Most of the ulama, most of them, they said that it is makruh. It's not a preferable thing. It's not a good thing. No? That's number one. And also, inshallah, with the other hadith here that we're going to be talking about, we should understand what is the concept of following janazah or visiting the grave and why. Once we understand why, what is the concept behind it, we know what's the benefit, what is not the benefit from it, what is the harm or what is good comes out of it, inshallah. So the next hadith here also, عن باب زيارة القبور, for the visitation of the graves. عن أنس بن مالك رضي الله عنه, صحابي, he's the servant of Rasulullah عليه الصلاة والسلام. He was 10 years old, as we always talked about. He was 10 years old when his mother took him to Rasulullah عليه الصلاة والسلام, and she offered him to be his servant or to be his helper. And he said, the hadith, the famous hadith about him, he says, I spent 10 years with Rasulullah عليه الصلاة والسلام. He never said to me a bad word. He never raised his voice on me, not even once. He never told me of something that I've done. He never asked me, not once, why did you do what you did? Amazing akhlaq, amazing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted this ummah, people like this, to witness the life of Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, how he treated his servants, his helpers, how he treated his wives, Ummahat al-Mu'mineen, how he treated his Sahaba, his companions, and his life, 23 years, was an open book. 24 hours, no privacy. Everything that he did, every breath he took, every action he has taken, it was witnessed by somebody, was conveyed to us for us to know what to do and how to get it done. Anas ibn Malik narrated this beautiful hadith. He said, مر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, the Prophet Rasulullah عليه الصلاة والسلام, he was passing by a woman, تبكي عند قبر. She was crying in front of a grave. فقال, he said, اتق الله واصبري. اتق الله, fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and have sabr. Sabr is patience, right? Be sabr. قالت, she said to him, she said, إليك عني, he says, get away from me. فإنك لم تصب بمصيبتي. You did not hit with the calamity, the one I was hit with. And Anas ibn Malik says about this hadith, he says that he was saying, وَلَمْ تَعْرِفُ, she did not know who he was. Rasulullah passing by a graveyard. And he sees a woman, she's sitting in front of a grave and she is crying profusely. And he tells her, ittaqillah, fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And spiri, be patient. And she looks at him and says, get away from me. You were not hit with the same calamity, with a calamity like I've been hit. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows who that person could have been. Her husband, could have been her brother, could have been her father, could have been her son. that she was in the grave, right? And she did not know who he was. So after he left, somebody walked up to her and said, "Did you know who that was?" She said, "Oh, I don't know." She says, "That is the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's right there. He's the one you told him, get away from me." How could you say that to him? Say, فَقِيلَ لَهَا إِنَّهُ النَّبِيُّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. So فأتت باب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. She came to his house, to the door of Rasulullah عليه الصلاة والسلام. She came to his house, to his door. فلم تجد عليه بواب. She did not find a doorman at the door. The door was like any of the rest of the houses, the rest of the doors. There's nobody at the door. No? So فقالت, she knocked on the door. So she said to him, she says, لم أعرفك. I did not know you. She, in an apologetic way, she says, "Ya Rasulullah, I did not know who you were." How could you do this? How could you say this to Rasulullah? Keep away from me, But she had an excuse, right? No, she did not know. It's a mistake. Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam answered her back. He says, إِنَّمَا الصَّبْرُ عِنْدَ الصَّدْمَةِ الْأُولَى. The patience of the true sabr in the first second when you get hit with a calamity, with the first shock, that is the true sabr. That is true sabr. It's a beautiful hadith. What do we learn from it? Number one is, a woman standing in front of a grave, she is crying. Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, the one who is guiding us what to do. And he told her, says, ittaqillah, fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and do not sit there and cry for the loss of this person that you have lost. Wasbiri, be patient. Why is the relationship between the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and crying or being so upset, crying profusely for somebody you lost? What's the relationship? Is there contradiction between both? Is there? Watch. When you lose somebody and you cry for the loss, it's typical for somebody to be upset, to be sad. That is typical. That is very typical, and that is normal. Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, when he lost his son, when his son Ibrahim passed away, he was a year old. Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam held him in his hand, and a tear came from his eye. He was a very merciful person. He cried. But at the same time, he was upset. He's a man. He's just like us, like all of us. You get upset, you lose your son, especially at a young age like this. And when he says, and he said he implied, he says, the eye will cry and the heart will be sad, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will put you in a better place, inshallah. But now, this is typical. Now, if you extend it, if you go down like, a day, 2 days, 3 days, a year, 40 days, like what we do, وَلَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ, we do this huzn, the sadness for losing somebody, and do this. That is not from the way of Islam. We rely on our happiness, on the existence of this somebody in our lives. We don't rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us happy. We don't rely on the salah between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to get us move forward. We are relying and we are distracted by the sadness of the loss of somebody. Sadness is typical, that's fine. But what do you do after you get sad? You just sit there and become more sad, and you wail, and you rip your clothes, and you yell and you scream, and all that. That is not from Islam. What you say, you have to know, we have to know, that death is part of life. Nobody will never ever survive to eternity. Everybody has to die. It's part of life. We are born, we live our lives, we die. This earthly life is temporary. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to remove us all eventually to the life after, or we will be judged for our actions, and we're going to go to our final destination, which is, inshallah, would be the Jannah, the place of reward for our good actions, our good deeds. No? That's number one. Number two, wasbiri. Fattaqillah wasbiri. Be sabr. Have patience. There is no tool better than sabr in Islam. There's no tool. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inna Allah ma'as sabirin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the ones who have sabr. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the ones who practice sabr. وَمَا صَبْرُكَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. It's been mentioned so many times in the Qur'an. It's been mentioned in our Sunnah. The importance of sabr. Some of the scholars said, the whole deen of Islam is two things. Shukrun wa sabr. Two things. If you take it, you get down to the bottom of it, you split it, it's all of it. To be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is shukr. To be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and for what He has given us from all this bounty, all this ni'mah. He has given us the health, He has given us the wealth, He has given us the money, He has given us the families, He has given us the place, the shelter we're in, He has given us, alhamdulillah, the clothes that we cover ourselves in, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us this dignity for us to live. That's the right for every person to walk the face of this earth, to walk in dignity, to walk in respect, to have good things happening to him. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ultimately, when He gave him the highest dignity, by giving him the place of burial. Look at the greatest dignity for mankind. This is a right for everybody. We should be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I always bring up this example, especially to my young youth here. I tell them, I always ask them, say, what is the worst thing you could possibly do to your dad? To your father. And they always tell me, you say, oh, you know what, I could, make him angry, I could do this, I could do that, that would. And I tell them, the worst thing you could do is that, can you envision this? Your dad comes in through the door and he gives you a gift, something you really liked, whatever it is. In their case, obviously, it would be an Xbox or a video game, So, and then you know what you do? You said, you look at him, you grab it, you leave him, you go outside your door, you go to your neighbor's father and you thank him, say, thank you for giving me that. It's like, wait a minute. Who gave you the gift? Can you imagine how the father would feel? I just gave you the gift and you think it's somebody else? I'm the one who gave it to you. And this is, kind of a small analogy. What would have happened? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us everything. Everything we're all about. He's the one who created us. He's the one who gave us the mothers and the fathers, given us the health and everything else. And what do? We thank somebody else other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We worship other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or, a little bit to a lesser degree, and this is what we consider in our communities, regardless of what communities where we live in, doesn't matter where. Somebody will give you something, you walk up, you grab it, not a single word, not even a thank you, not even a smile, not even nothing. You say, just give you $100. Okay. You put it in your pocket, you walk away. Okay. You look at him and say, the least thing you do is say thank you. Even a little child who's 4 or 5 years old, probably, or 3 years old, who's cannot even talk, right? You give him a piece of chocolate. What does he do? He takes it, he would look at you, say, he smile at, piece of chocolate, you give me something great. What about us? We get cars, we get houses, we get nice, decent life, we get roofs on top of our, what do? Not even a thank you. That is the shukr. Number one. Number two is sabr, patience. Patience on everything that we do. The ulama, and this is a big subject, but in a nutshell, the sabr is divided into 3 separate parts, generally speaking. The sabr is that for us to sabr when some calamity hits us on something, or something bad happens to us, like we have less rizq, we have less money in our pockets, we are hit by a disease or some kind of sickness. If we have something is going on with us, we need to practice sabr on something bad is going on in our lives. This is a form of sabr. The other sabr, portion of sabr, is that for us to be patient on doing the good deeds and not stop making it. And this is a very important kind of sabr. Like watch. And this kind of sabr, if you don't practice it, will turn the thing absolutely the opposite of it. Watch. You're making salah. Somebody who's making salah 20 years of his life, 30 years, 40 years. He's right there, he's about to die. And he lost patience. He doesn't want to do it anymore. He walks up, he says, you know what, I'm sick and tired of this, I don't want to do it anymore. All of a sudden, all his iman, all his belief turns into kufr. He turns it the absolute opposite of it because he did not associate the sabr with it. It turns the opposite of it. Somebody who's making siyam, make fasting all day. All day he's patient and he's not saying anything bad. He's making his salah. He stopped eating right before iftar, 5 seconds. He say, well, I'm tired of this. I don't want to do it anymore. He grabs a cup of water. He says, I curse this guy and curse this guy and does whatever. It's like, subhanAllah. His whole siyam, instead of being an act of worship, becomes an act of evil, and it's just nothing but a hunger and thirst. He spent the whole day doing it, you know. And you can apply this rule on everything that you do in your life. One of the things that we always talk about is that if we don't associate our actions with sabrs, with continuity, and be patient on doing it, we'll turn the opposite of it. That's why we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to always give us the perseverance, the patience, to be patient always on what we do. There's one more kind of sabr. Sabr is that this kind, it's a very special kind of sabr, is عند الصدمة الأولى, the first shock. The first shock. And that is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward these people, very high reward for people who practice this kind of sabr. Somebody's driving, right? He's all happy, he's getting in his car, everything is fine, and he's making dua, everything's good, driving on the freeway. All of a sudden, big truck comes in and sideswipe him, and the car goes, hit the driver. What does he do? The Muslim person will say, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah. This is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did it to me. I am happy with it. Whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me, Allah knows and I don't. Alhamdulillah. His hamd was before the shock, and it happened, and after, he's fine. And you got somebody else, he's fine, everything's good, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala good with me, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me this, gave me that. And the minute he gets into an accident, it's like he jumps up, he's like, why me? Why? Ya Allah, I was doing this and I was doing that. Or he gets out of his car, he starts cursing this guy, and you did this to me, it's your fault. Where's the sabr? Where's the patience? On the sadmatil ula, the first shock. Even for small things, Do you remember this beautiful hadith? Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam was in the battle of Hunayn. Battle of Hunayn, it's a battle going on, Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam was in the battle. And there's this guy, this Muslim person, he's the one who narrated the hadith. He says he was wearing big thick sandals. Big thick sandals. Bina'lin ghalidh, big thing. So he gets, in the middle of the battle of whatever's going on, he steps on the foot of Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam. He steps on his foot, pretty bad. So Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam immediately, what was the first thing he said? Ow, get away from me, you did. What did he say? Bismillah, by the name of Allah. Awja'tani, you hurt me. The very first word before he says, ouch, ooch, ow, you hit me. No. What does he say? By the name of Allah, Bismillah. Look at the patience. The word, your tongue is getting used to dhikr all the time. What do you say? You say Bismillah, and then you say, you hurt me. So, and then with his reaction from Rasulullah, he got like a whip in his hand. So he pushes this man because, it's like a natural reaction for somebody. You push him away because he's stepping on your foot with the very thick sandals. He's going to probably break his foot. He pushed him away. This man, he goes, La ilaha illallah. I stepped on the foot of Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam. And the one who's saying, I spend the night like no other night. He says, I'm staying all night, say, La ilaha illallah. I stepped on the foot of Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam. How could I have done that? How could I have done this? How could I, So next day in the morning, he was narrating. He says, there was somebody who was calling, walks around the, place. The person who stepped on the foot of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam come in and, he wants to talk to you. He says, payback time. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. What are we going to do? So he walks up to him. Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam told him, oh, so and so, you stepped on my foot yesterday and I pushed you. And here is 40 sheep I'm giving you in exchange for that push I've given you. Subhanallah. We learn from this hadith, nobody has a right to push anybody, even if somebody hurt you like that. That's a dignity. Look at the dignity of the people. Look at the dignity. The guy pushed him in reaction. There's harm has been done. It has to be, paid for. It has to be fixed. It has to be repaired. So this guy, he was, he come into Rasulullah, and what is he thinking? He's thinking, La ilaha illallah, I'm going to be punished, I'm going to be reprimanded, I'm going to be chastised, I'm going to be, something bad is going to be said to me. Or maybe Rasulullah is going to make dua, say, may Allah subhanahu, you stepped on my foot, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala break your foot. like what you stepped on my foot, or something like that. You know? And the opposite, he ended up, you know, that step was a mistake. Mistake. And the reaction of Rasulullah ﷺ, Bismillah, by the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, was fixed. And then, because he pushed back, Rasulullah ﷺ paid him 40 sheep for one step on the foot of Rasulullah ﷺ. Look at the akhlaq in Islam. Look at how Muslim never hurt anybody. Even as a reaction. Even as a reaction. Look at the nobility of akhlaq and demeanor. Here is the sadmat al-ula. This woman, she comes to Rasulullah ﷺ after, and she did not know. She says, get away from me. That was a bad reaction. Somebody's giving you good advice, even though you're upset, even though you're mad, even though you went through calamity, you lost a son, a daughter, a husband, whatever it is, a wife, or whatever it is. What do you act? What do you say? Somebody gives you advice. What do you say? Jazakallah khair. MashaAllah. Shukr. Shukran wa sabr. You think, Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much. You are guiding me. You're showing me something good. Her reaction was bad. She says, Ilayka anni. Get away from me. That is a bad thing to say. Number 3 is, when she found out, what does she do? She says, you know what? I'm grieving, I'm mourning, I feel bad. It is what it is, that's it. You know, just be stubborn and get stuck to your position, say, forget it. She found out she did something wrong. She said the wrong thing to Rasulullah ﷺ. What do? We come back and apologize, we come back and say something, we come back to fix it. Everybody makes mistake. Inna ibn Adam khata'. We make mistakes, everybody makes mistakes. You know, sometimes big mistakes, sometimes small mistakes. In the non-Islamic theology, what do we say? Adam alayhi salam committed the greatest mistake ever in the history of humanity when he made the mistake of disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he ate from that tree. In Islam, it's not like that. It's very simple. فقال ربك لآدم اسكن أنت وزوجك الجنة. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered Adam alayhi salam to dwell, to live, him and his wife in the Jannah. وَكُلَا مِنْهَا حَيْثُ شِئْتُمَا رَغَدًا. Eat from it anything you want. وَلَا تَقْرَبَا هَذِهِ الشَّجَرَةِ. Do not approach that tree. One tree. One thing. What did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? فَأَزَلَّهُمَا الشَّيْطَانُ عَنْهَا. The shaitan made them slip. Zalla. Slip. It was just a mistake. That's it. Now, the other non-Muslims would say, oh, it's all Adam's fault. We would have been all living in the Jannah right now. But he made that terrible mistake. He violated the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we are paying for this mistake until the end of time. That is not the case. فَأَزَلَّهُمَ الشَّيْطَانُ. It's just zalla, ya akhi, just a mistake. And what did Adam alayhi salam do? Adam alayhi salam, فَتَلَقَّى آدَمُ مِنْ رَبِّهِ كَلِمَاتٍ فَتَابَ عَلَيْهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught him what to say. Adam did not know a whole lot. Everything he knew, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught him. So, Adam alayhi salam, he made the mistake. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught him what to say, to make the dua, to make istighfar, to ask for something. And he repeated the same words. And the minute he said it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgiven him. That's it. This is a lesson for us. We make mistakes and we repair them, we fix them. We ask for istighfar from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we apologize to the people around us. This is how the path of life. And I always bring up this example. You know, sometimes the same mistake, it could have different ramifications. My biggest example, which is you've probably heard it 1,000 times, I'm going to bring and make it 1,001 today, is that the example of the stop sign. If you're crossing the street, the brother's smiling again, he heard it, I think, the 999 times so far. You cross the street, you're not paying attention, you cross the stop sign. Well, nobody's there. Nobody's paying attention. There's no cops, there's nobody crossing the street. Well, just one mistake. How about the same stop sign? You cross it. And then there's a car stopping by, you just nick it right on the edge of it. You pull over, you say, oh, la ilaha illallah, this cost me like $500 for me to fix the bumper with this guy. You know? Or fix another, $300 for your car. This is $1,000 mistake. The same mistake. Or the same stop sign. You cross it, and you hit this guy, this time not at the tail end of his car. You hit him right where the passenger seat. You end up hurting somebody in the car, End up, breaking an arm or something like that. And this guy, you call the ambulance, this guy got to go to the hospital, and then all of a sudden becomes a $10,000 mistake and becomes a broken leg or broken something. Or you cross the same stop sign, and this time you hit a school bus, and the school bus turns over and end up with a fire, end up killing 40 kids inside the car. It's the same stop sign. You end up having great ramification comes out of it. And that is the whole point, is that mistakes happen, but what do we do about them, and how do we fix these problems? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from those. She came to Rasulullah at the door of Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, and she did not find a doorman in front of his door. فَلَمْ تَجِدْ عِنْدَهُ بَوَّابٍ. Subhanallah. I want to see a president today, or a sultan, or a king, or even less than that, a minister, even a mayor at this point, without somebody standing in front of his door protecting him from what? What is he doing to deserve protection from people? I would ask them this question, and I would tell you Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam did not need protection. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has protected him. Number one. Number two is, look at the humility and the humbleness of Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam. Rasulullah alayhi salam was an average person, his house like the rest of the homes, his doors like the rest of the doors, and there's nobody standing over there manning it or guarding it. You don't have a whole secret service, surrounding his place. Secret service or open service, whatever you want to call it. There's nothing secret about it. It's everybody knows the protection of these, the guys in power. If you don't have anything to fear, you don't need anybody to stand there in front of your door. So, and she, in an apologetic way, she says, "Lam a'rafak. I did not know you. I said what I said." And Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam answered back, he says, "Innama as-sabru 'inda as-sadmati al-ula." As-sabr at the first shock, that is the true sabr. That is the true, you show your nature in the first shock. What is your reaction? Don't do it after 10 minutes later. After 10 minutes, after somebody gets hit with calamity, and he yells and screams or rips his clothes and and cusses everybody in front of him and hit the wall, and smack his head on the door 10 times, and then say, "Oh, ya Allah, he's from you, I believe in you." Okay, 10 minutes, what did you do in these 10 minutes? What did you do in this 1 hour? الصبر عند الصدمة الأولى. Next hadith inshallah. Number 88, عن أبي موسى الأشعري. Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, as we talked about him before. Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, he's the one who did the 3 hijrah. Abu Musa al-Ash'ari is from the Yemen, and he migrated to Al-Habasha, and then he migrated to Mecca, and then he went to Medina, and then went from Medina to Al-Basra, to Iraq. He's migrated 3 times. And he had a beautiful voice. And the people of Yemen, Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam described them as people who have softness in their heart. And they are the ones who used to do something that the Arab did not do all the time. Some of them did, some of them didn't, but they used to do it all the time. And we Muslims took it from them. What they used to do is, they used to do musafaha, they used to do handshake. They used to do the handshake. Before that, some of the Muslims did not, did whatever. Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam was asked, he said, when you meet your brother Muslim, what do you do? And they asked him, it does not mean that the hugging is prohibited, but it means that it is preferable for you to shake the hand of the Muslim. That was taken from Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. Rasulullah was sitting in the Medina, and he was saying, some people is going to come to you. Iman entered their hearts, and they have softness in their hearts. And sure enough, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari radiallahu anhu and his group, 40 of them, they walked in on Rasulullah, they came in, they shook his hand, the Rasulullah one by one. It was a beautiful sight. And it's been said that Abdullah ibn Mas'ud was there. And he said, we felt so proud. We felt so pleased of having people who never met, never seen before, come in, greet us with such humility and respect. It was a beautiful sight. You imagine you come in and you shake the hand of somebody. Subhanallah. So, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, he said, لما أصيب عمر رضي الله عنه. Umar ibn Khattab, as we all know, he was stabbed when he was in the Salah by Abu Lu'la al-Majusi. There was a man he was a Majusi, he was not even a Muslim. He went to Medina, and he stabbed Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu in the salah. And he died from it. After 3 days, he died from that stab wound. When he was hit, he was taken to his home. He was in his bed, Umar ibn Khattab. Suhaib radiallahu anhu, Suhaib al-Rumi, you know, he used to love Umar ibn Khattab. He used to love him very much. And he stood there and he says, wa akha. He started to kind of in raising his voice, oh my brother, oh my brother. Raising his voice like that. And they had a gut feeling that Umar ibn Khattab is not going to survive that. He's going to die from this stab wound. Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu said, أما علمت أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إن الميت ليعذب ببكاء الحي. And he looked at him and says, you did not know that Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam said, the mayyit, the dead, will be tormented, will be tortured with the crying and the wailing of the alive. That's an amazing hadith. Why? We know in Islam there's a rule, and this rule applies to everybody. لا تزر وازرة وزر أخرى. You don't get punished for something I do. I don't get punished for something you do. Everybody is only responsible for his own actions, for his own deeds, right? And this is known, you know. Even your own son, your own daughter, you know, whatever they do is that their own responsibility, as long as they know what they're doing. Have you ever seen somebody, you know, and that was before Islam, used to be practiced. After Islam is prohibited. If somebody from a tribe commits a murder, you take 10 people from that tribe and you punish them, you kill them all. It's like, well, they have nothing to do with this, right? Can you imagine today in a court of law, you say, you know what, that man killed that guy, or that man robbed the bank, right? So you know what, let's take his son and his wife who spent 20 years in jail each. It's like, well, what the hell? They didn't do anything, they're not responsible. So how would it be the dead would be tormented, would be tortured by the crying and the wailing of the alive? The ulama, they said 8 different explanations for this hadith. The 2 important ones, which is most of the ulama have said, that one of them is that the person have a responsibility to instruct his family of what to do when he dies or when he's hurt. He has a responsibility. And if he does not instruct his family or the close ones to tell them, you know what, I'm just a person. If I die or I'm hurt, I'm in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So don't cry, don't wail, don't do anything. Just make dua for me. Right? So he did his obligation, that's it. If somebody says, and says, you know what, like, the Arab before, they used to do that a lot. What did they used to do? They used to, when somebody died, especially the more important he was, they used to send, they used to have more people wailing and crying and screaming and la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, saying, oh, why, he's an important guy. Oh, come on, he deserves more wailing. The more important he is, the more wailing, the more crying, the more, noise we should, The more torture. And the guy getting tortured more and more. Why? He did not tell the people, like, I'm a humble servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's one of the meanings. The other meanings that most of the scholars said, that when this person is in his grave, and the other person is wailing and crying for him or about him, himself is being tortured by listening to these people wailing and crying. He's the one who's actually listening to this. And to him, this person, that he's dead, he's hearing, he can hear them. And we know that the first 3 days, the soul it's still around the body. And he's still in his grave, he still can hear us. And we know from the Hadith of Rasulullah, when somebody dies, his soul is there. And the person, he's dead, when separation of, and with this what we talked about, the separation of the soul and the body, this is the actual act of death. The soul is still there and could actually talk. It's trying to talk, but we don't understand, we don't see, we don't hear them. They hear us. The soul still can hear the live, it still can see the live ones, but the live ones do not see the soul. We don't see it, right? So the soul could hear this wailing, could hear this crying, and this wailing and crying, that would be torturous to them, to the dead ones. And the louder it is, the more tortured, the more tormented it becomes. Can you imagine if you got 100 people doing it and they're all yelling and screaming? That person is in severe pain, in a lot of pain. How about if you got 1,000 of them and getting louder and louder? It's going to be even more and more and more pain. How about a whole, 10,000, 20,000, whole tribe people sitting there ripping their clothes, yelling and screaming? This guy's going to sit there, he will be hearing them, and he's going to be getting tormented and tortured more. What we learn from this hadith is that the crying and raising the voice of wailing and ripping the clothes, it is strictly prohibited in our deen. We don't do that. However, and you could see the humility, and this kind of reminds us of one incident has happened when, after the Battle of Uhud. The Battle of Uhud, what happened is that Hamza, the uncle of Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, was killed. And from the 70, the Muslims who were killed that day. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept them, in his Jannah. Hamza was killed, he was stabbed in the back. He was, thrown with a spear in his back, and his body was taken, was kind of, they kind of cut it open, and they did, really bad things to it. So Rasulullah was very hurt with what he has seen, from, what has happened to Hamza. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with him, radiyallahu anhu. So after the salah was done, everything else, you could hear the crying, and you subtle crying in the Medina about the people who passed away that day. 70 of the good Sahaba, the greatest Sahaba, passed away that day. So people were crying and stuff. Rasulullah was sitting there all sad, and he said, Hamza has nobody to cry for him. All his family are in Mecca, and he's here. Has nobody crying for him. Nobody is being sad for him. So Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, he heard this. So he gets up, he goes to his house. He calls, a few of the women between his sister and his mother, his aunts, whatever. He says, come with me and sit in front of the door of Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, and in a subtle way, cry and be sad and mention the name of Hamza. Name of Hamza. So Rasulullah alayhi salatu does not feel sad that his uncle died, and nobody's sad for him. So sure enough, they came in, they stood there, and they said, oh, Hamza was a good man, Hamza was this, Hamza was that. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, radiyallahu anhu. So Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, he just looked at him and says, subhanAllah, look at the ukhuwa, look at the brotherhood, what that incident has, what kind of softens the hearts of the people, subhanAllah. If we care about our communities, if we care about our brothers, Muslim or otherwise, wallahi, we are not going to have a single hungry person in the world. You're not going to have a single person who is in duress in this world. If we really truly care from the heart, like the Sahaba, the companions of Rasulullah used to care. If we truly take our job, our deen seriously, if we take it the way it's supposed to be taken, to care, to spread peace, to spread tranquility, to spread happiness around the world would be a different place. And make no mistake about it, it's our responsibility, it's us, it's the Muslims. We have this knowledge, we have the Qur'an. The others, maybe they have an excuse, they don't know. And if they don't know, they have an excuse. Just like that woman, remember? She did not know Rasulullah, and she said what she said. That's an excuse. We have two things we're not being held accountable for. فيما نسينا أو أخطأنا. For what we've forgotten, or we made a mistake on. We're not held accountable. What about the rest of the people who don't know? It's our responsibility to keep up, to hold the responsibility on our shoulders, inshallah. Now, the next hadith, inshallah, and Abdullah. When you say Abdullah in the hadith, we mean one Abdullah. Otherwise, Abdullah is everybody Abdullah. I call everybody Abdullah, Abdullah, Instead of, look at the politeness of Islam. Somebody who's not Muslim, you meet somebody, say, hey you, hey dude, what, And la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Today is even getting worse, they talk to each other and they will astaghfirullah, and this is so prohibited in Islam. The young ones, they think it's cute or they think it's nice. They talk to each other and say, hey, what's up, dog? It's like they talk to each other like dog. What's up, dog? Go, dog. And I'm looking at the first time I heard it, wallahi, I was so in shock. I'm looking at it and say, what is the dog? I don't see any dogs. I'm looking down on But so that's how they talk to each other today. And look at the Muslim. When the Muslim used to come in and used to see somebody who's a Muslim person, what do you used to call him? Abdullah. That is the greatest name you could give somebody. Oh, you, the servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ya Abdullah this, Ya Abdullah that. I don't know your name. I would say, hey, you, dude, hey, you know, whatever. It's like, what do you say? Abdullah. That's a beautiful name. Now, if Abdullah name was mentioned in the hadith, we know there's one Abdullah, specific Abdullah. Who's that? Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. What's the name of Abu Hurairah? Abdul Rahman ibn Daws. Naam. His original name was Abdul Uzza. And Rasulullah changed his name to Abdul Rahman. So, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, we know Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, the thin Sahabi, his legs were so thin, people used to make fun of it. And Rasulullah said, his legs are heavier in the scale of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than the mountain of Uhud. That is Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Rasulullah said, take the Qur'an from 4 people. One of them is Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Rasulullah says, if one of you want to hear the Qur'an, khudr, ratib, green, the way it was revealed, listen to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. That is the man. Faqihul ummah. He's faqih. He's the knowledgeable one, right? And when, inshallah, next time we'll tell you, and I've mentioned this many times, how he became a Muslim. He had the right attributes to take Islam, and he became a Muslim very early on. This Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, the very first day that he heard an amazing event in his life. That's an amazing event. You know what that day was? The day where Surah Ar-Rahman was revealed. Ar-Rahman, Allama al-Qur'an, Khalaqa al-Insan, Allamahu al-Bayan. MashaAllah, beautiful. When he heard it, all the Sahaba, there were a few of them, that was before year 6. There's not even, at the time there had been said about 70 or 80 of them, not a whole lot. The whole Muslim Ummah was so short. When he heard the surah, everybody looked at each other, and they were like so ecstatic, so happy. And they looked at each other, and they said, who is the one who's gonna inform the ones outside, the kuffar, the non-believers, of this beautiful event, of the beautiful surah? Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said, I will. They looked at him and said, Abdullah, you're not even strong, you're weak, you're thin, your legs are so thin, you're not able, and you don't have anybody to support you. He says, I will. He says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to protect me. He goes out there in the middle of the Kaaba, he starts reciting, Ar-Rahman, Allama al-Qur'an, Khalaqa al-Insan. And the kuffar looked at him and they went after him, they wanted to beat him up, and they would start beating him up. One of the riwayat, he went back the second day, and he went back the third day, reciting the same surah. And you know what? After he got beat up, getting beat up all over, he says, I did the job, alhamdulillah. I did what I have to do. I did something I'm supposed to do. This Abdullah ibn Mas'ud narrated. He said, radiyallahu anhu, he says, Inna Nabiya sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, laysa minna man latama al-khudud wa shaqqa al-jiyub wa da'a bida'wati al-jahiliyyah. It's not one of us who latama al-khudud. Al-khud is the cheeks, right? Latam is the one who hits himself on the, like that, on the cheeks. Not one of us is the one who hits himself on the cheeks. وَشَقَّ الْجِيُوبِ. A jiyub is this portion of the dress. It could be thawb, or it could be qamis, or shirt, or whatever it is. And to show the jahiliyyah before Islam, to show the sadness, and somebody upset, he hears something, what do? They hit themselves on the face, and they take their shirts and they rip it. I'm really upset, what do? I hit myself on the face, and I rip my shirt. You could tell how, when I'm saying it the way I'm saying it, that sounds really silly. I'm sorry to say that. And the Muslim is not a silly person, he knows what's good for him. And Rasulullah nahana, he told us not to do that, right? وَدَعَى بِدَعْوَةِ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ. And he made the dua. He made the same things as the people of the days of ignorance before Islam used to do. An explanation here, ودعوة أهل الجاهلية هي نياحهم على موتاهم وندبهم بنحو قولهم وجبلاه وعضضاه وكذلك الدعاء بالويل والثبور. Before Islam, they used to yell and scream the name of this person. If his name, let's say, Uthman, oh Uthman, oh my Uthman, oh Uthman, oh Uthman, like that. Or, Oh, he starts screaming. That is the da'wah of Jahiliyyah. We don't do this in Islam. Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, this hadith, he says, Laysa minna. He's not one of us. Not one of us, what does that mean? He's not a Muslim anymore. He denounced his deen. That's very strong words. Very strong words. For somebody, a mother who sits there and wails and mourns her son in such a fashion. A father, a son to his father, it doesn't matter with that relationship. Anybody who does that, it's such strong words, as if somebody who became not a Muslim anymore. He's not a Muslim. He left his Islam. He's out of the millah. He's out of the deen. He's no longer a Muslim if you do this kind of actions. So, inshallah, we have time for one more hadith, or this is a long hadith on Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas. I think we should leave it inshallah for next time. It's already 7:55, so it's got 5 more minutes, so maybe we should leave it for next week inshallah. It's a lengthy hadith about Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, when he was visiting him in the day of the Hajjat al-Wada', inshallah. If you have any comments or any questions, barakallah feek, jazakumullah khair. Barakallah feek, jazakumullah khair.
A quick question.
Sure.
So you touched upon the women not being allowed to visit the grave. What about going to the grave actually? When you say follow the funeral, nowadays you don't actually follow the,
Correct.
The body's already there, you go to the place, you go to the masjid or
correct. We have also another hadith coming up talking specifically about the visitation of the graves. Now, why do we visit a grave? What's the purpose of visiting a grave? If you look at the concept of visiting the grave, is that the first 3 days or so, if you make dua, and especially at the time when you follow the janazah, and this is what we mentioned before, you follow the janazah, you make dua for your brother that he is in his janazah. You make dua. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will listen to that dua. We'll see what are the people who's following this janazah in that time. There's this other hadith that Rasulullah told us, is that the malaika, the angels, will be sitting down writing. What are the people talking about this person in the janazah? Is he saying, oh, he's a good guy, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive him? Or saying, alhamdulillah, we got rid of him, he's gone. So the angels will be writing down and say what their actions, the other people behind, the people behind him. So all the work to be done in that period of time. And when somebody is in the grave, Rasulullah says, Id'u li akhikum. Make dua for your brother. Innahu yus'al. He's being asked. Right now he's being asked, right? The first, when he first enters the grave, immediately his test, his, adhab al-qabr starts right there. If he passes or does not pass, we make dua for him. After 2 or 3 days, what is the dead has to gain from this earthly life? Absolutely nothing, except 3 things. Like Rasulullah informed us. What are these? صدقة جارية وعلم ينتفع به أو ولد صالح يدعو له. 3 things. 3 things, right? What? You make sadaqah jariyah, you spend money in the masjid, you open up a masjid, or even you bought you spend $10. $10 would buy you like 2 square inches of this carpet. That's all this is going to buy you, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for anybody who's going to come in and use this 2 square inches, this $10 in this masjid, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you reward for it. Sadaqah jariyah. Anybody who comes into the masjid, you're going to get reward for it. If you open up any kind of something is helpful, the kitchen, a restaurant, a food source, you buy a place that the rent comes back into the masjid, that's sadaqah jariyah. It's always sadaqah, always something is you have benefit comes from it. Uthman ibn Affan, what did Uthman ibn Affan do? He bought a well of water, Bi'r Ruma. Bi'r Ruma, this is a famous story, it's a long story, but anyway, he bought this well, and the Muslims are drinking from this well, and the water is taken from it to give land. And guess what that well is today? You Google it, still there. It's called Bi'r Ruma. It's still in Mecca, still open, and people still drink from it 1400 years. And somebody, a person or an animal drinks from this well, Uthman ibn Affan is getting paid for it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with them. Radiyallahu anhu. This is sadaqah jariyah. The other one is علم ينتفع به, a knowledge you leave behind for people to benefit from. MashaAllah. You teach somebody some Qur'an. This is somebody is taking this Qur'an, teaching it to somebody else, somebody else, somebody else. This is ilm yuntafa'u bihi. You come in here at the masjid, you teach your kid, your son, something, somebody, you teach him something, any kind of ilm, and he takes it. And this ilm is being used for benefits for many, many years to come, that you get benefit from it. Ilmun yuntafa'u bihi. That is rare, not for everybody. The third one is وَلَدٌ صَالِحٌ يَدْعُ لَهُ. Out of the other hadith, مِنْ خَيْرِ كَسْبِ الْمَرْءِ. What? Ibnu, his own son. The best kasb. I'm not talking about the millions of dollars you gain, you benefit from selling and buying and trade, and I'm not talking about the factories you own and the land you own. The best thing you have in your life is good son who makes dua for you. Every time he makes a dua for you, you get paid for it. Equal to him, and his reward does not get deducted. Look at the Kareem, look at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the all generous. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives and gives and gives, and his wealth does not run out. And that is the best one. Now, other than these three, like what we've been informed, Rasulullah told us that we don't get a reward for anything else, because our books have been sealed. Our books have been sealed. Our work, everything we have done, been closed. Our smiles been counted. Our salamu alaikum has been counted for, is written there. Our attendance at the masjid has been counted for. Our salat al-jama'ah has been written. Our every single dollar, every single penny we have donated has been written for. That's it. Your book is sealed. When you go in the grave, the angels, Raqim and Atid, they take a rest. Say, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, our job is finished. We have written everything for this guy. The good deeds and the bad deeds, right? Sealed, and they surrender this book to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what's in this book before He created this man, because He knows his creation. He knows what He's going to do. But this book is taken to a place that something's going to be added on to it. It's going to be added on to it, which is, like I said, these three things. Now, other than that, what do you go to the grave for? What are you going to be doing there? To remember this guy? Remember yourself. That's something else. You go to the graveyard, but you don't visit a specific grave. See? Go to the graveyard. Rasulullah told us, he says, Zurul Maqabir, go to the graveyards. Why? It really reminds you how death will humble you. Because you see in one side, you see the homes and the castles and the towers and the shopping malls, and you see the other side, always you see is a 1.5 foot structure about this high, and people are dead in it. All these people were there, they were transferred here. Yes. But for you to visit a specific grave, for what purpose is that? If there is a purpose in it, for you to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm with you, do it. But for you to sit there and for you to reminisce, you sit there, oh, you know what? I used to sit with a brother, we used to go back, we made one salah here, and we went on vacation with him here, and he was a good guy here. You didn't do anything for him. You didn't do anything for yourself. You're better off for you to sit home, recite some Qur'an, come to the masjid, do something else, more benefit for yourself, but more benefit for him. He's not going to hear you, and you're not doing yourself or him any good. Right? Visiting the graveyards, yes, it's a humbling experience. Yes, and Rasulullah ordered us to do it. Unfortunately, what we have been doing is the Muslim Ummah today, and I experienced this all my life, when I was a kid, is that the day of Eid, before you make salah or after you make salah, you go to the graveyard. And we go visit. You go, this is your aunt's grave, and this is your uncle's grave, and this is your grandfather's grave. This has nothing to do with Islam. And specifically on the Eid day, it's not something that we do. The Rasulullah did not do that. Now, let's take this to the women. Rasulullah, and we all know, women are very emotional. Generally speaking, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them emotional. And what is the purpose of them to go visit the graveyards? What you always, as a Muslim, and this is our deen, outweigh the good and the bad. What is the benefit? What is the harm? What's the benefit? What's the harm? What do you think is going to happen when a woman goes there and she remembers her brother, remembers her father, remembers her mother, and she's going to sit there, she's probably going to cry and she will raise her voice, and that person is going to get harmed with what she does. Maybe. Could be. What is the benefit for her to sit there and standing in front of a grave for half an hour, 20 minutes remembering her husband? What's the point? Go home and could take care of your own book, because his book is sealed. There's nothing you can do for him beyond this point, right? So most of the scholars said the women visitation to a grave, to a specific grave in a graveyard, it is makruh. And if you remember the first hadith who says, to follow janazah, makruh, but walam nu'zam alayhi. It's like we were not enforced to do it, kind of like we were not enforced for us not to follow janazah, but we were told stay home. And if somebody follows janazah, it's not a sin per se for them to follow janazah. And this is generally, most of the scholars have implied this. A woman is definitely not obligated to follow janazah, and she's not being rewarded. The men are rewarded, and it's an obligation for us to follow janazah. Your visitation of the graveyard, for men and women, the same thing. There's no benefit in it. There's more harm in it than benefit. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. Now there's another hadith that's going to come up. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala يَلْعَنْ la'na. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will cast his damnation. He's cast away any goodness from people who build over their graves. Because why? They make it a place of worship. Make it a place of worship. And this is exactly what the people of Nuh alayhi salam did. Why did, by the way, the people of Nuh alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed them with a flood, flooded them all. That's exactly what they did. The shaitan had his way with them. How? The shaitan, he says, subhanAllah, watch. Shaitan does not tell you to make shirk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What did the shaitan do? The shaitan walks up to somebody, he's telling him, what, this is your father, this is your grandfather, this is somebody important in your family. Pay respect for him, right? So these people, when some wise people, their fathers, their grandfathers, were, they used to die, they used to put them in the grave and pay respect for them. Respect, there's nothing wrong with respect, right? They used to visit them in their graves. But then eventually, shaitan came up to them and said, you know what? This is a good thing, you need to visit them on a weekly basis or monthly basis, whatever. He used to go over there and visit them. And then he said, you know what? Make it easy on yourself. Don't make it hard on yourself to go visit their grave. Make a statue for that, whatever somebody. Put it in your house, and you look at him, so you remember, and you remember the humility in the grave and this and that or whatever. So they put it there. Their children came, the relatives to say, oh, my father used to walk by this statue here, and used to look at it, and used to pat it on the head. Maybe he was worshiping. He would say, oh, give me a blessing, oh, your little statue. And then all of a sudden, the next generation became, this statue is a place of worship. It started what? By paying respect to the graves and the elders, the dead elders. That's why, see, from the days of Nuh alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited us from making statues, from creating pictures. This was prohibited from those days until today. Why? Do not make mistakes like the others did. Do not make the same mistakes, and do not start something you should not be doing, from there. So the visitation, now we know the visitation of the qabr of Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam is preferable, and that's good. Rasulullah told us to go visit his grave in his masjid, and Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made an exception for him. For anybody who makes dua for him, say sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Rasulullah is going to hear it, and he holds it accountable. He holds it, and that is a form of worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Other than that, you have nothing to do with the dead except remember you're going to be with them eventually. Wallahu a'lam from this point. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from the ones who follow the good word and always have the good ilm and good knowledge in our lives, inshallah. We'll continue on next week. We only have a couple more hadith in the Ahkam al-Janazah and Ahkam al-Qabr, inshallah. And then we're going to go with the Kitab al-Sadaqat, as-Sadaqah, inshallah, from there.